Okay, well, before you do that, um, so I was updating the slides, and it says, admission deadline is January 15th for fall. Is that still January 15th for next fall?
Oh, yeah, it's December the 15th. So I can go ahead and
December the 15th. Okay,
Sure.
let me
Yeah.
fix that.
Okay, thank you. And I can update everybody on those.
Cami, do you want us on video?
Either way. So yeah, you can take your choice.
It says I cannot. It says I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
That's what it said to me as well.
You can be our one representative showing your face.
Okay, let me try this. You're the co-host now, so maybe that will work.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay, so, okay,
Yeah. Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Hi, George.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll go ahead and just start real quick, and then maybe give everyone just a moment to log in. So hi to everyone. Good morning or good evening, wherever you're located. We are going to start shortly with the Master of Quantum Information Science webinar. So we'll give everyone just about one more minute to go ahead and log in, and then we'll get started. Okay, thank you. Okay, perhaps we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Cami. I am with the School of Engineering at the University of Southern California. And today we have Dr. Todd Brunn and Dr. George Ingersoll. Todd is from the School of Engineering here at USC, and George is from the school, actually not from the school, but from the Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences here at USC. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just kind of turn it over to them. But today's session is directed for students who are interested in applying for the Master of Quantum Information Science program here. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just learn a little bit more about the program from Dr. Brunn and Dr. Ingersoll today. And then there'll be some time for you to ask any questions that you may have. Okay, all right. Dr. Brunn, you can go ahead and get started.
Well, I hate to interrupt at this early stage, and I can't remember. Cami, did you want to provide any information about Viterbi, or is that in Dr. Brunn's slides?
Oh,
okay, my fault.
I do have some. I do have some info. But
sorry to break in. I'll stop interrupting.
I'll ask you to, when I get to the to Dornsife, I'll ask you to say a few words about that.
Perfect. Can do.
Yeah. Okay. And then if anything arises, we can give more information in the Q&A afterwards, I hope. Okay. Okay. Can you see the slides? Great. All right, so I'm Professor Todd Brunn. I'm in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at USC, which is in the Viterbi School of Engineering. and I'm the faculty advisor for the MS program in quantum information science. But it was put together by a number of faculty. I'll mention some of them a little later, and with a great deal of support from both the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, the Dornsife College, from George in particular, and from the Viterbi School of Engineering. So let's say a little bit about USC and about the schools. So the University of Southern California, obviously, is in Southern California. It's in Los Angeles. It's a leading private research university with a very diverse student population, including a larger number of international students, particularly in the School of Engineering, but more broadly as well. And interdisciplinary education has been a major focus of USC for some time, and quantum information science fits very well into that viewpoint because it combines ideas from physics, quantum mechanics, from computer science, from engineering and pure mathematics, chemistry, and a number of other fields to create a new kind of way of both understanding quantum mechanics from a kind of fundamental point of view, but also of creating a new kind of information technology, especially quantum computing. So within the university, there are a number of schools, and my primary appointment is in the Viterbi School of Engineering. I have an appointment also in the physics department, which is in Dornsife. So the Viterbi School of Engineering is pretty old as such things go. It was founded in 1905. USC was founded in 1880. So for California, that's really, really old. I imagine these numbers for undergrads and grad students are out of date. I didn't update them since the last time we did this, which was about a year ago. But there are a number of academic departments, PhD programs, and a large number of different kinds of master's programs, one of which is the MSQIS. And there's a huge alumni body. Worldwide, we have a lot of students from abroad, particularly from India and China, but from a lot of other countries as well. It's one of the top graduate engineering programs in the country. Usually ranks somewhere between 8 and 14 or thereabouts. It has a lot of different research centers devoted to different kinds of interdisciplinary research. And it also is a pioneer in online education. So USC created DEN, the Distance Education Network, which was targeted at working engineers, many of them working in local aerospace firms and defense contractors in the Los Angeles area, who were trying to get a master's degree while still working. And the original version of DEN predates the internet. It was done with closed circuit TV, and now it's developed into webcast courses and entire online programs. So the MSQIS was not conceived as an online program. It's an in-person program, but in the aftermath of the pandemic, a lot of classes are being offered both online and in person. So that's about Viterbi. So I'll ask George to say a little bit about Dornsife.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. And I'll throw some of these facts and figures about Dornsife, but it's really kind of I think to emphasize this point that Todd brought up about sort of the interdisciplinary nature of this program and some of the collaborative aspects of it, which I think are one of the things that makes it such an exciting degree. So as you can see, Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, founded in 1880 with the founding of USC, is sort of the academic core of the university. It includes natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, nearly 1,000 faculty. When you add the departments and centers and institutes, it's over 100 within the college. And 1,300 doctoral students, conducting scholarship and research across an incredible array of disciplines, many at the very cutting edges of their fields, which is all to say that, like Viterbi, Dornsife, the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences is a really intellectually vibrant place. It's constantly challenging its students, and certainly me as well, to learn and explore more. And I think this is very emblematic, in particular, of the MSQIS program. It's certainly an excellent example of that collaborative nature and just the challenging new, areas of inquiry. And I wanted to emphasize the collaborative and broad-reaching nature of the work being done across Dornsife and Viterbi, because I think it's particularly applicable to a degree such as this with its diverse and emerging applications. Now, obviously, the department within Dornsife that's the key player, as Dr. Brunn mentioned, in this collaborative degree is the Department of Physics and Astronomy. And I think that in particular, this department in itself characterizes the diversity of thought and inquiry with its research programs from, high energy physics to condensed matter physics, nanoscale physics, solar physics, physical biology, all these, I'm certainly not the expert in all the different areas. And of course, the quantum, this degree in quantum information science, which I think is it's really exciting, and it touches so many different parts, not just in physics within Dornsife, but chemistry and many other applications as well.
Thanks a lot. This degree program, and I mentioned it was conceived by a group of faculty, and they are indeed split among a number of departments, primarily electrical and computer engineering and physics, but as George said, also chemistry and also computer science, and it really is a very interdisciplinary field. This program is administered within the School of Engineering largely for practical reasons of not making the bureaucracy too difficult. But the classes are taught by faculty from many different departments, and there's input from many different areas. Okay, so let's talk about quantum information science. We're already in a phase of research where real quantum processors now exist. So the field of quantum computing and really kind of took off in the mid-90s, and it was largely a theoretical enterprise with very small scale experiments, just testing kind of the basic concepts, but very far from being able to do anything practical. But that really started to change in the mid-aughts and kind of accelerated in the last 5 to 10 years, when a number of major companies started investing in this area, seeing real promise in it. Among those, IBM has actually been a player in this area from quite early days, but they now have one of the major hardware efforts in the world, building superconducting quantum processors. Google has another hardware as well as a software effort in quantum computing. Intel's been developing superconducting chips as well. Microsoft has been working both on a somewhat different approach to the hardware, which is based in Santa Barbara, and also on the software side, developing programming environments and software tools. And it's not just in the US by any means. Alibaba and Tencent both have efforts, and many other companies in Europe as well as Asia, the US, and Canada. There's a lot of smaller companies, startups that have been founded in this area. So Idée Quantique, which is based in Geneva, is founded by a former postdoc advisor of mine. D-Wave in Canada developed a quantum annealing machine. It's in a sense the largest quantum machine that exists. The latest models have 5,000 quantum bits, which is vastly larger than the next largest chip, though it is not a general purpose quantum computer. And then smaller companies developing quantum processors like Rigetti and IonQ. And then companies more focused on the software side of things, including Q-Control, which works on applying control theory methods to quantum computing, Xanadu, and a long list. I will actually show you a list which is already out of date later in the talk. So this growth of industrial involvement in the area has really changed things, and it's why we created the MSQIS program, because at this point, there are real possibilities to work in this area on things more than just basic research. There's design and hardware development, there's programming, and there's issues of providing access through the cloud and many other aspects of quantum computing and quantum information science that have now opened up. So there are a lot of new opportunities available, but the people I've talked to at these companies really would like people to have some background in this area, because otherwise they have to go through a very difficult and expensive process of training people to understand this area. So that's the reason we conceived of this MS in quantum information science. So why are people interested? Why are people trying to do this? Well, over the years, starting again in the 90s, there have been a number, well, really starting in the 80s for the cryptographic applications, there are a number of applications that have been created, at least theoretically, where quantum computers or quantum communication systems could play a role. So cryptography is the earliest one. There are already commercial quantum cryptographic systems. Ide Quantique that I mentioned before is a developer of such systems. And then on the computation side, the people are right now testing these small processors with the idea mainly of applying them to problems in simulation. So the one of the earliest writings on quantum computing, all the way back around 1980 by Richard Feynman, proposed that they would solve a difficult computational problem, which is that it's very difficult for classical computers, ordinary computers, like the one I'm using now to talk to you all, to simulate quantum systems, because the description of quantum systems grows exponentially with the size of the system. But a quantum computer's own internal space also grows exponentially with its size. And so it's a good match for the problem of quantum simulation. One of the main areas that this is being applied to is quantum chemistry. So far, only very simplified versions of these problems, but as the processors are getting larger and more robust, this is changing. Chemistry, in some sense, is applied quantum mechanics, but it, once you get beyond the very simplest molecules, it's difficult to solve exactly. Another area that people are looking at is the problem of optimization. So people have been developing heuristic type algorithms using quantum computers to solve difficult optimization problems, scheduling problems, verification problems, that kind of thing. That's what the D-Wave machine is all about. It's designed specifically to solve a certain class of optimization problems. Theoretical idea for an application that was developed about 15 years ago is to solve large linear systems, whereby large, these are, solving linear systems with matrices that are exponentially large. And this has also been shown to have potential applications to machine learning. So if you could use quantum computers to develop new machine learning algorithms, there's a potential advantage there in scaling. Yet another area, so we've talked a bit about communication, as in cryptography, we've talked about computation. Another area is sensing and metrology, where using systems in particular quantum states can improve the sensitivity of measurements. So this is still more of an experimental, research-driven area, but with a lot of promise. Other types of communication protocols, so getting a bit more speculative, In principle, the use of quantum resources for communication can boost communication rates and also allow certain kinds of non-classical communication. And then, of course, if you can apply quantum simulation to chemistry or to optimization, then there may be applications in many, many different fields. So drug development, developing new kinds of industrial catalysts, financial modeling, solving difficult financial modeling problems that involve optimization and so forth. So the master's program was conceived to fill this need that I referred to, which is the growth, especially within industry, but across the board really, in demand for people with a background in quantum information science. It was created as a collaboration amongst faculty in a number of different departments, and the classes that make up the program are taught by faculty in these different departments. The basic structure of the degree is 28 units. So a typical class is 4 units. So that's about 7 classes. There are some smaller classes and also directed research and other things that can be less than 4 units. And this divides up more or less into 3 groups. So there are 3 foundational classes that everyone who completes this degree must take. There are at least 2 core classes from a longer list of core classes, and we're hoping in the next year or so that list of options will grow. We have a couple, 2 or 3 classes in the pipeline right now. One being offered as a special topics class right now, one that will be offered that's on fault tolerance, one that will be offered in the spring on quantum sensing, and one that was offered last year on quantum cryptography. And then the rest of the units would be taken up with elective classes that could be in a wide variety of areas. We have a fairly lengthy list of ones that are pre-approved to be applied to the MSQIS program, but we are also open to approving other classes to count for that. So this ranges from classes in quantum mechanics, in computer sciences like algorithms, in quantum chemistry, and many other areas. So there's an emphasis on practical applications. So in the foundational classes, there are projects that are completed, either theoretical projects or programming projects on existing quantum processors, or in some cases just reading projects, delving into other areas of the field. This is a pretty new thing. So we're one of the first master's programs that exists in this area. I know a number of other schools have been working on them, so I'm not sure how many others are offered at this point, but it's still only a comparative handful, especially in the United States. So if you want the details of the exact requirements, you can go to the USC course catalog, which is available online. And I'm also, of course, happy to answer anyone's questions. So what was involved in this? Well, in the course of taking these classes, you will get opportunities to use quantum devices, in many cases programming through the cloud, which these things have to sit in very specialized labs and you can't put them on your desk. That's still science fiction, unfortunately. But they are accessible, the IBM machines are accessible through the cloud, IonQ and so forth. Amazon has, as part of their AWS, they have access, what they call Brocket, to a variety of different quantum processors that are now commercially available. There will be an emphasis on applying these to real problems. And the goal of it is to give students a solid background in this field so that they can move on to whatever career they want to, whether moving into industry, in some cases, or possibly into government labs, in some cases, maybe going on for a PhD, depending on your goals, what kind of work you want to do. There are also a lot of PhD students at USC working in this area as well. And we've been working to try to build up a kind of local quantum community among the students. Some students who recently arrived have been trying to organize a quantum club that may include undergraduates as well. So we're hoping that comes together this year. So to look at the classes that make up the degree, the three foundational classes that are required are quantum information processing, which is EE 520. I'm teaching that right now. Quantum error correction, which is for quantum computing to scale up to large problems, is an absolutely necessary development that's currently a little beyond the computers that currently exist. But we're hoping that that will change in the next few years. Certainly companies are actively working towards making that possible. And the third one is application, so that's EE 514. And the third one is applications of quantum computing, which is physics 513, which involves programming quantum computers to solve particular types of problems in simulation and optimization. Then among the core classes and the elective classes that are available, there's a class in quantum information theory. I'll be offering that in the spring. There's a class in open quantum systems that will be offered in the spring as well. There's a quantum devices class that's going to be offered again next year, which would be, when anyone who gets admitted to the program in this round will come next fall. Then there are also elective classes in quantum chemistry, applied cryptography, algorithms, high performance computing, big data. And like I said, we're also hoping to expand the range of quantum options with some of the classes that are currently being developed. So it's possible to complete this in 3 semesters, though some people choose to stay for 4 to kind of space things out a bit. So a 3-semester schedule could look something like this, but there's a lot of flexibility. So arriving in the fall, one could take EE 520, the Introduction to Quantum Information Processing class, and an elective class at the same time. Then in the spring, take Physics 513, the second foundational class, and one of the core classes, perhaps Physics 550 or EE 589, the Quantum Information class, and another elective. Over the summer, one could do an internship. I know that internships are available in a number of companies and also in research labs. So I posted an ad for IBM advertising for interns for the upcoming summer just recently. Or one might conceivably stay on campus and do directed research with a faculty member. And then in a 3rd semester, take the last foundational class, EE 514, quantum error correction, and one of the other core classes, perhaps quantum devices. So this is only one example. Exactly what electives you might want to take and the exact order in which you want to take your classes may be affected by your own background. We have students from a lot of different backgrounds. Some come from physics, some come from electrical engineering, some come from computer science. So depending on your background, so a physics major might have already taken an advanced quantum mechanics class as an undergraduate and not need to take it again or not want to take it again. A computer science major might want to do that to get more familiarity with quantum mechanics, or they might instead want to move more in a direction of software or error correction or something like that. So it's designed to be flexible, to be able to accommodate students with many different backgrounds. And the classes, the specifically quantum classes, also don't assume that the students come from a particular background. So for instance, in E520, I spent a lot of time reviewing quantum mechanics and computer science concepts that we need for the field. So here are some of the faculty. We've actually hired a couple more since this slide got put together. We are scattered among several departments. So I and Daniel and Ben are in ECE, but Daniel also has a joint appointment in chemistry. Ichiro is in computer science. Eli and Paolo and Rosa are in physics, where I also have a joint appointment. But Rosa is also in biological sciences because she's a physical biologist, or and applies quantum simulation methods to biochemical problems and things like that. And then some recent faculty, Chuntao Zhou, who just arrived, Zhang, who just arrived in ECE, who does quantum sensing. There's Susumu Takahashi in chemistry, who also does quantum sensing, and several other people. So where might you go with this degree? Well, some of it depends on what interests you, of course, but there are opportunities in research labs, both in industry and government and academia. Tech companies, as I mentioned before, IBM, Google, Intel, Microsoft, a lot of tech companies, Honeywell, Hewlett-Packard, have quantum computing efforts. Also efforts among defense contractors, like Lockheed Martin, among others, energy companies, telecom companies. And then there are startups, small companies that are being founded by people from the field, that are springing up all the time. So I can't even keep track of them all. I will show you a list that's already out of date. And then some people, having taken the classes, may decide that they would really like to go in an academic direction and do research, or even perhaps ultimately do research in a company or a government lab, but want to continue to get a PhD to further enable that. So here's a list. I pulled this off of the website of my colleague Daniel Lidar several months ago, so I imagine it's already very out of date. In fact, I think it was out of date when I pulled it off of his website already, because there were some companies that hadn't made the list yet. So some of these, as you can see, are big companies, Alibaba and Google, Hewlett-Packard, and some of them are smaller startups like Magic or Q-Control, Rigetti, and so forth. And here they're roughly grouped in a few different areas, but this just keeps growing all the time. Give you a bit of a visual aid to think about this. In March, earlier this year, I went to the American Physical Society's March meeting, which is a large physics meeting, and in their exhibit hall, about a third of the exhibitors seemed to be working in various kinds of quantum technology. So, and several of them I'd never even heard of before I showed up there, which shows how fast that things are changing. So I snapped a few pictures of some of these companies while I was there, and talked to some of the people there. So the field really is growing very vigorously right now, and the demand for people with a background in this area is growing as well. All right, so who would be a good match for this program? Well, obviously the program is focused I mean, it gives you the theory, but it's focused also on application. And so we want people who come in thinking about how to solve problems, both problems in the development of quantum computing and applying quantum computers and other quantum technologies to solving problems. We can take people from a lot of backgrounds. It helps to have a very quantitative background. So I don't think, you know, French Romantic poetry will probably provide you with the background you need, not knocking it, lovely stuff. But people could come from a physics, mathematics, engineering background, computer science, and so forth. Computer programming is certainly very helpful, and I think that's a general statement that goes well beyond this field, but most of the classes are not heavy programming classes, but it is useful to have that background. Similarly, if you have taken a class in quantum mechanics in a physics department or perhaps an engineering department, that is helpful. But the way that quantum mechanics is used in quantum information processing is a little bit different than the way it's typically taught in a standard physics class. So we mostly teach that background, the background that you will need for that. However, you do need to have a strong academic record for admission. And most of all, you should be really interested, because while the field is growing, that's not by itself a reason to get into it. You should get into it because you're interested and think it's exciting and want to be a part of it. Okay, so you can apply like for other programs, and Cami can probably give you more information than that. I believe she told me that the admission deadline to apply for admission in fall of 2023, so next fall, is December 15th, though we have in the past sometimes considered late application. This will be the third group of admitted students. The first two are already here. So that's on the order of about 25 students total at the moment. Actually, the first ones to graduate will graduate at the end of this semester. Right, so I think that's most of what I have to say, but I'm happy to answer questions. So if you will answer some questions now, but if you have additional questions, you should feel free to email me or George or Cami, and we will do our best to answer them. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much. So there is just one clarification too, just on the GRE exam. So it is waived again for the coming year. So you have already listed that, Professor. So
I hadn't checked if that was still the case, but that's good to know. Thank you.
Sure. And there is a question right now. Paul Lash is asking, as a CS major, if they would be able to use the master's program to pivot into quantum hardware.
Well, yes. Now, obviously, if you're coming, I guess CS is also quite a broad field, so some of that depends on your background there. So if you're coming from a very theoretical side of computer science and you want to go into quantum hardware, then you're going to have some ground that you'll need to cover. But yeah, if someone wanted to do that, I would recommend when they come to take a kind of standard quantum mechanics class as one of their electives, as offered by either the physics or the ECE department here. Take the quantum devices class that's offered by Eli Levinson Falk, who's an experimenter. And then the foundational classes kind of give you the theory and how you apply them. So that'll certainly sort of get most of what will get you where you're going. And then perhaps another elective and or directed research with someone working more on the hardware side of things might help you make that transition. I mean, a lot of the people who are building these things now actually did their original education in something completely different, and we've had to train ourselves to fill the gaps in what we know. So fortunately now there's more classes available to help fill those gaps.
Thank you. I think Palash has got a follow-up question about the internships that students have gotten through this program. And I know that we're trying to kind of compile those since we've just kind of gotten the first couple of cohorts. So I'm not sure if you have any insight on that, just based on your conversations with students.
I don't have a comprehensive knowledge of what students have done. I know some things that a couple of students have mentioned to me. One student I know worked at AWS, the Amazon division, on their quantum computing efforts. So that was last summer. So AWS has a center in Southern California at Caltech. They actually have a different center here at USC doing non-quantum things. So that's one I know about. Let's see. So we've had students do internships at IBM Watson Labs, and they just, like I said, sent me an ad a few, 2 or 3 weeks ago, advertising student internship positions in the summer, both at their New York facility, Watson Labs, and also at Almaden in Northern California. So I know that has also been something done in the past. But yeah, we should try to gather that data so we can say a little more comprehensively what people have done.
Definitely.
This is, again, totally anecdotal, but I'll just note that, when we were first talking about this program, we're just looking at all the opportunities out there. I've never seen, I mean, I don't want to over emphasize, but there were an incredible amount of internships, given the sort of paucity of programs, especially master's programs in the field. There were just an incredible amount of big companies advertising internships. So I do think there's strong opportunities in, very well-known places, and a lot of, exciting startups that Dr. Brunn mentioned.
Yeah, so that's kind of, like George said, it's kind of anecdotal, but I have that same impression. Hopefully we can gather some data to make that a little more fleshed out. And also, as I mentioned, doing directed research with faculty during the summer is something also that some students have done, which is, well, an internship, they're more likely to pay you, whereas directed research, unfortunately, you pay us. So but it's still an opportunity to learn more about the field.
And then, speaking of directed research, I know that some students might have this question. Have you seen thus far any students in the master's program ask about pursuing further education in the field? Do you think that there is opportunity elsewhere for someone to pursue this as a doctoral program after going through the master's?
Yes. So the MSQIS is still pretty new, so we haven't yet had a graduate from this program go on to a PhD program because they're all still in this program. But others, I have had students in other master's programs go on to PhDs working in this area, and others who are planning to apply right now because they've been talking to me about getting recommendations and things like that. So several of my PhD students started as master's students. That is not an automatic thing. You have to apply to the PhD program. You can't just transfer like changing a major. But they've gotten in based on directed research they did when they were master's students. And then some have applied and gone elsewhere.
Okay, and I think that's probably, Cynthia, I know you're asking, are graduates of this major more likely to do some research work in the future? So I think Dr. Brunn probably touched on that question a little bit, unless you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Some of it depends on your interest, but if you're interested in research, yeah, I think this would be one way to get into that, because there is availability of research here with faculty, and also opportunities to move on in either into a PhD program or into a company where research would be part of the job. But like I said, we can't really point to students yet from this program that have done that because it's still so new.
Okay, we have a question here. I've completed my bachelor's degree with a majors in mechanical engineering and a minor in AI. I have not done any projects in quantum computing, but I have learned the required courses online. And am I a good fit for this program?
So like I said, if you have good quantitative skills, then I think that you could certainly make that transition. And especially if you've done online classes and things like that. I will point out a good friend of mine is Seth Lloyd, who is a professor at MIT in the mechanical engineering department. He was a physicist. He went into the mechanical engineering department, then he started doing quantum computing. So he always jokes he's a quantum mechanical engineer. This field is rife with people who have a background in one area and have worked moved into another.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And then meantime, I'll answer a couple of these questions here. I think someone wanted us to repeat the application deadline. So that is December the 15th in order to be considered for some merit-based scholarships. So please do make sure you submit your application by that time. One thing I should mention, electronic transcripts, do make sure you upload those into your application. That usually is the biggest holdup for students. Sometimes our applicants will upload copies that are not official. Sometimes they're driven by, a student portal that they can log into and they're printed out. So make sure you don't do that because that causes significant delays. So the deadline is December the 15th. So just try to adhere to that if you would like to be considered for those scholarships. Okay, and then someone else is asking if this degree can be taken part-time by visiting campus, occasionally. I think that's your question there. We don't offer this program by online delivery just yet. So you would need to take the program on campus. But depending if you are a US citizen or an international citizen, if you're a US citizen, you can take the class, take the program part-time. But then if you're an international citizen, you need to make sure you're adhering to whatever your visa requirements are, which is 8 units of coursework. So that would be 2 classes at a time.
I'll just mention right now in the aftermath of, well, not even quite aftermath, unfortunately, of the pandemic, a lot of classes still are being offered jointly online, but that is not something that you should count on necessarily persisting forever.
Yes, thank you. Okay, all right. So what are some areas of research being done at USC related to quantum computing?
Okay, so there's a lot of research on error correction and fault tolerance, which is necessary to build larger scale computers. There are applications to quantum simulation. So I mentioned Rosa Di Felice, who applies quantum computers to let us say biologically inspired, because they're still rather small because of the size of the currently available processors. But she applies them to biologically inspired problems. Let's see, there's work on quantum algorithms by Professor Reichart and myself and Daniel Lidar, among others. Quantum control, so that also has to do with implementing the machines. There's been some work on communications, optical communication, quantum communications by optical links. quantum sensing, I think I mentioned that. Eli Levinson Falk is developing new kinds of superconducting quantum circuits for new kinds of qubits and other devices. Those things that occur to me off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of things. Anyway, it's a pretty active area. We're not, you know, the field has grown so large that I can't say that we're covering everything that's being done in the field, but there's a pretty broad selection.
Okay, great. Okay, so George Tamaras is asking, can someone apply to both a PhD and master's? And if no, how do I choose which one to apply? So we offer a master's program in quantum information science. But if you would like to apply for a PhD program within the School of Engineering and also a master's program, you can certainly do that. You can apply for up to 2 programs within the School of Engineering. So I hope that answers your question there. What are the requirements of obtaining the merit-based scholarships? So you would need to apply by that scholarship deadline, and that's the most important part. And so if you're admitted, you then go to a scholarship committee that will start to identify students that are candidates for a variety of scholarships, and they all kind of vary. Some of them are just general scholarships. Some of them you need to be a specific major or have a specific background. So that's kind of what I can tell you is the most important thing, is just to ensure that you apply by that scholarship deadline. And if you're identified as a candidate after having been admitted, then you'll be then notified. All of our scholarships are merit-based, so we don't have any need-based funding for the School of Engineering. So definitely I encourage you, if that is something that is a factor for you, definitely look at some external sources of funding as well. Okay. Okay, so let me go back here. What are the research areas we are covering in quantum security? I think that's a question for Professor Bren.
Well, a lot of the potential applications of quantum computers are in security-related things. So the reason that the field really took off in the 1990s was the development of Peter Shor's factoring algorithm, which can be used to break public key crypto systems like RSA. So that got a lot of people interested, because that was suddenly not some abstruse thing. That was a problem with real world implications. Also quantum cryptography, and more properly quantum key distribution, is an important application of quantum information methods. And we have some work related to that as well. So I'm trying to think what else would be quantum secure, security per se. That's what immediately occurs to me.
Great. Okay, and then Palash is asking, are there any opportunities to pursue research in simulations using quantum computing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most likely ones. So I mentioned within classes, these classes involve projects which could include quantum simulation. So that would be a very small version of that. But if you do a directed research project with a faculty member, quantum simulation is one of the likely areas in which it would be. I have, for example, 2 different master's student, one working on the error correction aspect of it, and another one working on the actual simulation aspect of it.
Great. Okay. And let me just look at a few other questions just to make sure we've got most of them. We have just about 5 more minutes, everyone. So if you have any last questions for Dr. Brun or Dr. Ingersoll, please do feel free to ask now, and now's your chance. Okay. Oh, I do think someone was asking a follow-up question about, I'm a non-US citizen working in the United States. So if you're not on a student visa and you're working here, then you should be able to take the program part-time, because the student visa is what is requiring you to have a minimum number of coursework at any given time. So if you're working here, you should be okay to do the program part-time. The application process is the same for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone a last couple of minutes to ask any last questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. But our information Dr. Brun had shared, you can feel free to contact us if you have questions about the application process. And in some cases for this master's program, we are able to extend the deadline just by a little, but I do encourage you to try to get that in by December the 15th, because that one we start considering students for scholarships early because of the number of applications that we have for our master's program. So just be aware of that. Okay. Okay, Dr. Ingersoll, did you have any last words of wisdom or closing comments? Because it looks like possibly everyone might be done with their questions at this time.
No, Dr. Brun certainly has covered it very well.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions, though.
Okay, all right, then I'll turn it over back to Dr. Brun if you had any last final thoughts before we wrap up the session.
I just would like to say thank you for your interest. And I mean, of course, I am not unbiased, but I think it's a very exciting area. And I think that biased or not, it's clearly growing very rapidly and there's a lot of interest in it. So if you want to work in a new field of technology, then I think this is a good opportunity to do it.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. I hope that you will contact us if you have any further questions, and I'd be happy to kind of guide you through the application process if necessary. Thank you to Todd and George for joining us this evening as well, and taking some time to speak with our prospective applicants today. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.